Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar by ProSymmetry on the subject of Tempus Resource. I'm going to introduce you to our speaker, Greg Bailey, in just a moment, but before we get started, just a couple of brief admin points. My name is Andy Jordan. I'm the president of Refenzian Consulting in Ontario, Canada, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's session. So if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to type them into your chat panel, and we'll get to as many as we can. We're going to allow 10-15 minutes or so for questions at the end, and we'll try and get through as many questions as we can with Greg. This session is also being recorded, so if you feel like some of your colleagues will benefit from this, you will be sent a link approximately 24 hours after the end of the webinar, which will contain details of how to access the recording, and that will also include a link to access the material, so you'll get all that as well. This webinar is eligible for a PDU as well from PMI, and I will give you information at the end of the webinar on how to go ahead and claim that. And finally, the audio is through your speakers. So if you're having any audio issues, if it seems a bit quiet, or if you're having a little bit of static, just check your speaker and sound settings on your computer, because everything seems to be okay from our end. So without any further ado, let me introduce our speaker today, Greg Bailey. After selling SharkPro software, the Microsoft 2012 Worldwide Project and Portfolio Management Partner of the Year to Progility, Greg joined ProSymmetry in 2013 to bring Tempus Resource to market. Greg Bailey has led international teams and partners for over 25 years in the project management and resource management space, including being founder and CEO of SharkPro Software. Greg was Vice President of Platinum Technologies Application Lifecycle Division until it was purchased by Computer Associates for $3.5 billion. Greg was also the head of eLabor's Resource Planning Division until the Enterprise Project product was acquired by Microsoft and became Microsoft Project Server 2002. Greg's presented at hundreds of PM events, and he's really excited about replacing spreadsheets for resource planning. So Greg, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andy. Really appreciate it. Welcome everybody to today's session. I'm actually not standing at a podium, but if you're going to be at the Gartner PPM event in Orlando or the Gartner PPM event in London in June, I will be at both of those events speaking with some of our clients. So look forward to meeting with you. As we go through today's session, what you're going to find is that I've got just a little bit of an overview about resource management, some industry trends, some other topics that I hear as I travel around the world. This is just kind of pictures of many locations around the world that I've been to where we have lots of clients. And I think the big takeaway is that resource planning is a global challenge that people have all over the world. So as we go through this, again, feel free to ask questions throughout the session, and we'll also have time at the very end of the session. We've worked with many hundreds of clients. We are the Gartner 2016 Cool Vendor. We're also in the latest Gartner Hype Cycle. I'll talk a little bit about that, and then the 2015 Market Guide. So in general, what we're finding is that there are organizations, whether it's banks, whether it's medical manufacturing companies, whether it's IT, large IT organization, or high-tech groups like Qualcomm, and so on. Again, pretty much everybody has challenges related to resource management. A couple of things that when we look at Gartner, right? Gartner spends a lot of time talking about the project portfolio management space. And really what we're going to talk about today is that there's nothing wrong with that project focused, but there does seem to be a gap around how do we do that resource planning at the right level without having to get to too much detail in a specific project plan to do the resource management. Obviously, most of you or many of you on this call here, when we got some of the surveys, many of you are using Excel. Also, many of you are using PPM tools also, things like Microsoft Project, Clarity, PlanView, Smartsheet, you name it, there's lots of them. The key here is that in general, the vast majority of people are still ending up using spreadsheets or some other tool, even if they have a PPM tool. And one of the reasons why, and one of the reasons Tempus Resource was built from the ground up to support the resource planning, is that in many cases the PM tools all require you to get down to a task level. And that's why so many folks end up using spreadsheets, because in many cases, you want to be able to manage your resources at a project level. And it could be you're doing FTE, full-time equivalent planning. You might be doing man-hour planning. You might be doing budget planning. But you want to do it at that project level and not so much at the task level. So I'm going to talk a lot about where what I would call PPM and RPM, or resource portfolio management, complement each other, and how we've had many clients leverage the technology I'll show you today to be able to help get off spreadsheets and to be able to get an enterprise-wide view of your resources. You're going to also, obviously, without some statistics, you want to have a little bit of information you can take back with you. The organizations that do a good job at resource portfolio management obviously have the best success rate in terms of getting their projects completed, getting the data to executives in the right format. So there's a lot of benefit to looking at doing resource portfolio management. And this slide just talks a little bit about some of the main areas, that you probably look at. And then obviously some of the best organizations, which is in the green here, are the ones that are effectively doing resource portfolio management. When we took a look at, and again, sometimes some of these surveys are a little bit old. I mean, this is maybe 2 years, right, 3 years old, but I think it's pretty applicable today. That when folks look at the resource management marketplace, and PwC did a study on it, there was some key things that they found. One is resource management is still a challenge. And obviously, we've had, I think, over 400 folks sign up for this webcast, so that just kind of proves out the fact that you're not alone. That there are organizations that are trying to do a better job of getting the right resources at the right time to be able to deliver the projects and programs. In many cases, what I see companies doing is they tend to focus a lot on the project portfolio management side. So they might leverage strategic drivers, and they're looking at prioritization, and they're looking at pipeline, and they're saying, they've got all this demand coming in from the business units on which work can we get done. And they tend to not have as good of a handle on, can we even get that work done based on the resource load that we currently have, or the employees we have that can do that work. So just know that you're not alone. This is a challenge. Many people have the same issues, whether it's at a higher portfolio level or whether it's even within a particular department. We work with organizations, as I mentioned, that might be managing IT resources. We've got others that are managing engineering resources, manufacturing resources, and recently was at a very large banking conglomerate where they've got thousands of auditors that they have to put on available assignments to do audits. Again, the challenge is they've got limited set of resources with obviously usually more work than they can get completed. Now, only showing this really quickly here. Some of you are familiar with the Gartner Hype Cycle. And really all this is showing is that so many folks get so caught up in trying to get PPM in place. Again, nothing wrong with it. It's got a very important place in organizations. But it tends to be, especially when they're trying to do resource management, a lot of those tools say they do resource management, right? But you tend to get not only a big hype around saying we're going to deploy it, but you tend to really quickly fall into what we call this trough of disillusionment, meaning the whole idea of getting that project and resource management using a PPM tool, everybody's all excited, but then when they really start figuring out how they can leverage it for resource planning, they quickly get not as excited. So that's where we see a lot of companies just continue to leverage Microsoft Excel. And again, I see that over and over and over. They might be using a PM tool, but they're also looking at Excel that they're using to do the resource planning. I also have a lot of organizations that just say, I'm not at a place where I necessarily need a PM tool. I need a resource management tool. So both use cases are applicable, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. So I would wager that, I know a lot of people say Microsoft Project is the probably the leading PM tool in the world, but again, many of you on this call would probably agree with me, or maybe not, that Excel is probably the biggest PM tool in the world. And it just seems like it's one of those products that just can do so many things that folks just continue to use it. And sometimes it is maybe the right tool for the job, and sometimes maybe it isn't the right tool for the jobs. So as we look at, us working with so many organizations that are using Excel, there's lots of challenges with that, as you know, right? You've got lots of spreadsheets that different people may be using. Sometimes there is one large big spreadsheet that folks have built with macros and reports and all kinds of things out there. But if you handed that off to someone else, they wouldn't know what the heck was going on in the spreadsheet. And again, one of the biggest things we found, and that's one of the reasons we built Tempus Resource from the ground up, was that we found so many companies still using spreadsheets, even if they had a PPM tool in place. So with that, why are people continuing to use spreadsheets? One, everyone has it. Obviously, the data capture is simple. As I said, when you're doing your resource planning, whether it's a man-hour or FTE, you typically want to do it at an easy, high-level way to do it. And again, a lot of times folks say, I can get what I need. I don't have to go through a big PM deployment to be able to leverage that. So some drawbacks to it, obviously, I won't read all of these, but just again, know you're not alone. I mean, I would say 70% of the organizations we work with probably have had some spreadsheet that they're leveraging. And I'm going to let you know that some of them have 50 resources in the pool they manage. We have others that literally have 19,000 resources globally that they were managing on spreadsheets. And they might have already had 3 or 4 PPM tools that they were using, but when it came to doing the resource planning, the tools just were too much detail for the way the resource managers or the executives wanted to do it. So we'll show you how we can help solve that. Again, we wouldn't want to look at a technology unless it's going to give you some kind of benefit. And so we got lots of case studies on how Tempus Resource has been used to give extreme benefits for managing your resources in your projects. All right, two more slides, maybe 3, and then I'm going to jump into a demonstration for you. So what you're going to see today is Tempus Resource, and it really was built to solve the problem of being able to give answers to the questions that you get every single day around your project and resource management. So what I found was a lot of the products out there had reports or dashboards, or in the case of Excel, you've got your static data. But what you couldn't really do was ask questions and get answers of it. Things like, what if a project slips? What's the impact on all my resource load? What if a project's got to get done quicker? Show me the impact on my resources in real time. So we're going to show you the modeling capability or scenario planning capability. I have to remember to say scenario planning. I was in Brazil recently on a trip down there, and a lot of the organizations didn't quite understand the modeling concept, but we'll talk about scenario planning. So Tempus is going to allow us to do this real-time scenario planning. Now, you can use Tempus standalone. So in other words, I can enter data directly into it just like I'm entering it into a spreadsheet, which you'll see. We break the need to have to go to the task level. So I can also import data from other systems, whether it's from an existing PPM tool, whether it's from Excel, whether it's from Microsoft Project, whether it's from Jira, whether it's a homegrown system. The whole idea is we wanted to make sure that we fit in very comfortably in whatever organization and however they need to get a look at their resource across the either, again, department or enterprise view. I use the term enterprise loosely because, an enterprise to you might be the IT department. Some IT departments are huge. I'm going to be heading over to South Africa in about 3 weeks for one of the largest banks in South Africa, and they've got 6,000 resources they're going to be managing with this. So again, there's a lot of ways we can use it. So I'll demo a lot in this modeling or scenario planning, and then I'll just show you how easy it is to enter data. I'm going to drop out of the PowerPoint now. You all will get a copy of this deck. There's actually a lot more slides in here, and you'll also get the visualization of this. At the end, if anyone's interested and you want to get a more detailed demo, If you want to do a trial with your data, we offer that as well. So just at the end, you'll have all this information that you can follow up with me on that. Okay, so now when we look at Tempus, as I mentioned, it's a web-based application. It either runs in the cloud or it can be installed on-premise at your site if you'd like that. No problem either way. We're going to have the ability to not only enter data, okay, but also, as I said, model or do some scenario planning on the data. As I mentioned, you can use this standalone. I don't have to connect to anything, but if you were connecting to different tools, you know, we've got the ability to connect to many different systems. Again, I'm not going to show you all of them on here, but things like if I was going to import initially my data from Excel, you know, we're going to drag and drop into our templates and pull that data in. In fact, if you want to do a trial and you've got your data in a spreadsheet, very easy for us to get that up and running very quickly. Some folks might have Microsoft Project. You know, we're dragging and dropping MPP files up here. In some cases, we're connecting to Project Server, Project Online, Smartsheet, Clarity, PlanView, Workfront, whatever the tool is, we can pull it in. Again, we don't have to do that. This will run standalone. Because we do normally, when you're first setting a system up, right, you're going to have a resource pool, and that's just going to consist of named people as well as generic resources. You know, I need 2 PMs on this project, or I need some developers, or I need some engineers. So we're going to let you have named resources as well as generics, and then you're also going to be able to have custom fields. So in your case, if you're managing resources at all, you probably have your resources grouped by department or location or skill, or they speak a language, or they have a position role. Whatever user-defined attribute you use, that's going to be able to be set up in here from a resource perspective. And when we look at having a particular resource, we're also going to set up some base information about this resource. In particular, what's the base capacity a resource can have? How many hours a day can they work, week or month can they work? And then obviously if it's a generic, we can have an equivalent FTE. So if you're doing headcount-based planning, we're going to let you do it. We're going to let you handle that as well. If you do have calendars that you want to enter for holidays, and also admin sort of time, you know, personal time off, business as usual, all kinds of very easy ways to set what is someone's capacity. And then when we start doing some demand planning on it, that's where you could start seeing where they're over allocated or under allocated. This is sort of just setup stuff. I'm just kind of, when I go in and start looking at projects and assigning resources, just know I've got resources that are set up in the system, and there's data that is going to allow me to look at information. Setting up projects, there's a couple of ways that we can do that. As I mentioned, we could have pulled these projects in from some external source, or if I just wanted to create a quick project, let's just call this webcast. And maybe there's some fields or descriptions we want to do for this webcast project. As I mentioned, they're all user defined. So whatever you want to set up in here, you're going to be able to set up. So is there a benefit? Is this for a particular customer? And again, you know, these aren't ones that come with the system. You're going to be able to basically define, you know, it's part of this portfolio. It's part of a program. It's for this location. It's for this department. So anyways, when you're creating a project, you're just going to set user-defined attributes for a project. Now, typically what we're going to want to do now is assign resources to the projects. And there's a couple of ways that we can do it. Because I know many of you on this call, there's different use cases. I'm going to run through 3 of them, not to overwhelm you, but just to let you know you can do it simple, but then there's also some advanced features in here. So when we're basically assigning resources or doing our allocations, we want to be able to do it where we're saying maybe this project's going to run, you know, for the next whatever, this period of time. Now, if you notice the grid here, I'm looking at months, but if you wanted to enter data in weeks or days, you can. Also, you're going to be able to enter hours or headcount or FTE percent or a budget. We're going to let you enter it however you want to. Now, You may just want to just start saying, hey, I know I'm going to need Aaron, I'm going to need an accountant, you know, I'm going to need Catherine on this, whatever. And if you notice now, I've assigned resources to this project. I can now go in and say, well, I'm going to do it by hours. I need them for 160 hours. And I'm just going to drag and drop or copy and paste. Or if I wanted to, I could do it by head count. Let's just make the assumption, I forgot to set my base capacity for this resource, so bear with me. But let's just say Catherine is developer, and I could say I need 2 of them. You know, I need 1 of them, and I'm going to use 1 during this period here. Or you could do it by percentage. I'm going to need Catherine for 50% of her time, you know, from here until these next few months. Or you could do it based on a cost. It's a contract or something. Hey, I've got $5,000 I could spend this month, and or $50,000, and that actually will convert back to how many hours we know we're going to get of that. Main thing I wanted to show you here is it's a very spreadsheet-like data entry vehicle. So you can enter in hours, FTE, FTE percent, or cost, and as well as doing copy and paste, drag and drop. One way to enter your data. I'm going to show you another. There are cases where you might say, hey, I need to, and let's actually get rid of these resources here. We want to build a team of people that's going to go work on this project. So we've got a real simple build team capability. And what happens is it ends up bringing up basically a listing of all the resources that we've got working on this project. I'm going to just change my resolution just a little bit here so I can get a little more real estate. I know it's kind of small to read the words. But basically I'm saying I need to put a team of people on this webcast project. It brings up all of the resources and what their current availability is. So I can see a lot of people are already over allocated, so I probably wouldn't want to put them on the team, but it's letting me see that. For those cases where you have you know, a lot of resources, you know, whether it's in the hundreds or thousands, you might not want to look at the whole list, so you might just start filtering down and saying, hey, I need to get folks that are, you know, have the position role of, let's see here, analysts and developers or whatever it is you're looking to put on this team. And you might then also say, you know, and I want to make sure that these resources are based out of, you know, London, you know, and New York and Delhi. So again, using your custom fields, whatever they are, you're going to be able to say, I'm looking for a resource that has this skill and based in this location or whatever, and it whittles down this list now. So now I could say, well, it looks like Bonnie's got a lot of time. Let's put Bonnie on this, maybe Dimple's on this. I can use Dimple, and if I had some generics I wanted to place, I could put generics as well. Just add them to the team. So I just wanted to show you this is another way, very easy to be able to assign resources to the project by basically building a team, assigning them to that project in that way. Okay. Here I'm just sort of looking at a project list with my custom fields associated with the project. You can create as many views as you want to. Choose basically which fields you want to add to this view, and then obviously group your projects. You can do the same thing when you're looking at your resources. You can do all this grouping. Okay. Entered a single project, showed you how to assign resources, also showed you build team. One other way folks will leverage data entry. Right now I'm just focusing on easy data entry to help simplify that spreadsheet. Many people want to do it in bulk, meaning I want to say for the next 3 months, 4 months, or whatever, I need to assign multiple resources to multiple projects at the same time. And if you notice now, a grid comes up. So you can think of a spreadsheet where you can do basically edit or bulk multiple projects entry at the same time. So in this case, I do have tasks that I've assigned to this project, but I don't have to do it at the task level. You can just do it at the project level. So I could say I'm going to put Aaron on this ARM project, again, either by hours or by FTEs or by FTE percent. I could say I need them for 45 hours. Again, I could go down to weeks if I wanted to, or days, however you want to do it. But again, this bulk data entry, where this gets used, I see quite a bit, is sometimes PMs will request resources, and then maybe the resource managers who own the resources will be in this bulk. Or if somebody's used to using a spreadsheet and they like to get at a lot of data at the same time, they can do this. The other place this gets used is, let's say it's a project and you have multiple managers that assign resources to the same project. This is a way for them to be able to go in and assign their people to that same project. So, you don't have to open up each project individually and go in and edit it. For some of you that use Microsoft Project, you know that you open up a single file, you edit it, you close it, and many of the other products do it that way as well. This, in essence, is multi-user access, so you can have multiple people updating the project at the same time, in particular around the resource management side. So another way to enter data, there's a lot more fancier things here. I'm not going to go through all of that, but just showing you the three simple ways: adding resources to the single project view using the build team, doing it in bulk, and then one final way, if any of you have the scenario or use case where a PM requests resources in a project. So let's just go look, I think, on my order management system project here. Let's see. And so if I go in and look here, I've got certain resources that have been requested on this project, right? Sarah, Paul, Fabian. And then I have some generic resources too. So if you notice, there's some icons here. A couple of these resources have actually been approved by a manager. So what happens is, if you go in and you start saying, hey, I need a resource, 250 hours, or if you're doing it by FTEs, right? I need 3.91, whatever the quantity is I need. Again, we don't care how you want to enter it. What'll happen is a resource manager will get notified, and you're seeing this here, there's a request that, hey, you've got to do something. So in this case, if I go open up this request because it's pending, I can see that Paul was requested 150 hours, 150 hours, 150 hours. Now I can go look and say, well, first off, Paul is over allocated, so I probably don't want to put him on this project. So even though, they requested him, I could either just reject it, approve it, delegate this to another manager, or I could say, you know what, I'm going to, instead of Paul, give him Fabian or Jitendra. Now remember, this could be a generic resource too. So if someone said, I need a design engineer, and I need 3 of them or 2 of them, that would show up here as well. I'm just in my demo image, someone requested Paul. So I could say I'm going to give 100 hours of that work and 50 hours of that work, and I'll just copy and paste it down. And then I can, usually I would just delete Paul, but I don't want to mess up my demo data. And so in essence, now what I could do is I could say, I'm going to now not give them Paul, but I'm going to approve Fabian and Jitendra for those hours. Again, I'm not saying everyone on this call would maybe leverage this. I just wanted to give you it as an option that from a data entry point of view, if you do have a workflow process, we give you the ability to do that. Okay, so data entry, very easy, just like entering it into a spreadsheet. Now, what can I do with it once it's in here? One, I can report on it, which I'll come back and show you. The other thing I can do is go to Tempus, which is our scenario planning. So the whole idea of this is that we've got many users that say, hey, okay, I'm going to go take a look at my projects and take a look at my resources. Now again, by leveraging your custom fields, you can say I want to roll it up by position role, or you can roll it up by department, skill, location, just whatever your custom field is. The main thing is you now can go take a look at your data. And so what I'm seeing now in the upper panel are my projects that I selected. Some of these are what I call proposed projects. That's why they're grayed out, meaning there's demand, but it's not reflected down below yet in my heat map, which is really showing me where I have over and under allocations. Now, if you notice, I did group it when I built this scenario by role. Again, it could be by anything else. And you could either just use generic resource, or you can get down to the named person and see where our over allocations occur. I can view this in months, weeks, days, quarters. I can look at a cool map, shows me where I have open capacity, traditional graphs, as you would expect to see, where you've got over and under allocation, and then obviously the raw data with the grid view, which is going to show me, in this case, by month. I'm looking at hours, and I can quickly see where, marketing during July is 22 hours over, and these are the projects that are driving that. But if I wanted to switch this to head count, FTE, so I could see where I'm short head count, I can do that as well. Or if I wanted to look at it in terms of a budget, I can look at it in terms of a budget. And there's lots of other views here too. You can actually say, just show me where my deficits are. It brings your eyes right to where you've got issues on certain areas of your projects. Okay, lots of ways to view that. If you don't like our heat map colors, you can set your own colors there. So let's just do some other items here. Let's just say, for example, this audit tracking solution. So this is great that you can see you're over allocated. You can think about right now whether you've got your data in Excel or in a PPM tool, and you can see reports showing this. But now you want to be able to make decisions such as, we think this project's going to slip. What's the impact on all of our work? I drag it, I drop it, and in real time, if I go to my Delta view, it shows me the before and after implication of that project slipping and which resources were impacted by that slipping. So the whole idea is to be able to do these real-time, what if this happens? Some other what ifs you might do. You might go, what if this data parsing tool is going to take longer than we thought? And I want to see the impact on my resources, either again, by generic or by named person if you want to do that. So we're going to have both. Many of you on this call probably have the case where you've got some projects that have some dependencies on each other. So you might want to some quick dependencies in here, because you want to know, for example, if this project slips, I want to make sure all that other work goes with it. And I want to, again, in real time, see how that's going to impact my resource loading down below. By me just slipping all of that work out to the future, how is that going to impact my resources? In a lot of cases, the allocations went up, creative went down in this situation. We're tracking all these models and what if scenarios. So at any point in time, you could say, you know what, I don't like that last thing I did, undo it. So you think about, you're in your PMO meeting or your department meeting or your status meetings, you're always going through these kind of questions, right? You can see you're over allocated and you're going, well, which project should we do now? Can we slot more projects in? What's the best way to allocate that work? This is going to let you do that in real time. Again, that's why we pull data in from any PPM or other tool, because a lot of the products just don't give you this really good modeling capability. But again, you don't have to pull data in. As I showed you, you can just enter it direct. A few other scenario planning. As I mentioned, these up here are what I call proposed projects, meaning we've got all these people that want this work, but we don't know whether we can do it based on our current workload. So we give you a couple of tools for that. One is I can go in here and say, hey, show me when I can kick that project off. Tempus will come back and immediately give you multiple options on when you can start those projects. Now, if you notice, this is the earliest date that I can start it, but it's telling me that I only have 77% of the resources available that you need. Real world scenario, right? Someone says, hey, I need to slot this project in. Do you have enough people to do it? Well, in this case, it's saying, well, you're a little bit short, but now you might ask the question, well, show me where I'm short. So now it comes back and says, okay, here's exactly where you've got your gaps by either generic requests or named people. So that would mean that you've got to address these over allocations before you can kick it off on that date. Now, in some organizations, they do allow people to request named folks. The next question I usually ask, and I've been in a lot of these meetings, is do we have just enough of the skills available? You know, in other words, if we just, you know, does everybody just want Greg or everybody want Adam? So that Adam just keeps grabbed all the time. So I can say by aggregate, I want to now know, do I have enough of the generics available? And it says, yeah, actually you do. You have 99% of what you need. And you can actually kick the project off earlier. You just have to address those over allocations on those specific people. So Tempus is going to give you this real world information. Again, there's a lot more to it that we can get into on a specific demo, but just at a high level, you know, I could say that's when I want to do that project, include it. And then obviously the Delta view would say, all right, by you including that project, here's what's going to happen to those resources. You know, in some cases they went up a little bit, in some cases they went up a lot. So again, I'm just giving you examples of different scenarios you can do. Now, some of you may want to do modeling at a higher level than the project level. So if you have project level custom fields, so in other words, you can group your projects by status. You know, you've got new requests, waiting, active, complete, or maybe you have your projects grouped by priority, right? I've got 11 projects with a priority 3, 4 of them priority 1. Or maybe you've got them grouped by department. So again, these are just whatever custom fields you've got at the project level. So what can I do here? I can go in and say, in fact, let's go back to status real quick. And let's just say all these new requests, I'm going to exclude those for a minute, and I'm going to exclude all these waitings. Okay. Meaning that I can see that I've got 4 projects in the new request status, 2 that are waiting. So now what can I do? I could go in and say, hey, what would happen if we did all those new requests? Right now, it's not reflected down here. So I could just say include them, show me the impact of my resources by including all of those new requests that we've got, and let me know whether we can do them or not. It looks like actually we could do all those new requests. Or let's say, and this may not be a real world case, but let's just say I looked at all of the different projects we've got going on by department, and I want to say, you know what, we're just not going to get to this all this finance stuff this year. Let's move it out till next fiscal year to see which resources will free up. So again, I'm really just kind of giving you a sense that this is unique in that you can do these real-time models, real-time simulations, detailed history logs are performed here. And then if you wanted to, you can get down to an even lower level of detail where if you're going to say replace a generic resource with a named person, or let's say we know Adam's over allocated and we need to swap them out, we need to know who could do the work, and it shows me exactly what everybody's allocation is that have that same skill, SME, position role, or if you needed to find someone with another department. So the tools here are to allow you very quickly and easily to find over allocations, to be able to do swap outs and see where, you know, you can better allocate that. And all of this here is really in a, what I call a virtual simulation. So you can do these to your heart's content and you're not impacting any base data at all while you're doing this. Okay. So just to refresh a second, we showed how easy it is to enter data single project or in bulk. We showed how we can do modeling and scenario planning. And obviously we also have basically reporting and dashboarding all built into, because a lot of people want to be able to get reports. The only thing I'm going to show you on this really are, I'm going to create a quick tabular report and then maybe show you a couple of graphics, and then I'm going to open it up for questions in 5 minutes. So being able to create pivot style charts, I mean, almost everybody does that, but let's just go ahead and just say we were creating a webcast report off of live data or a particular model maybe that we've built. And so now I can just say, well, what data do I want to see? I want to see it by year. I want to see it by month. Maybe I want to include project names. Maybe I want to include project custom fields if you wanted to, or resource names, or maybe I want to look at position role first, and maybe I want to get resource names. And then all of the data is available to me so that I can look at things like planned allocation, hours, FTE. Maybe I want to look at remaining allocation hours, FTE. we do also allow you to enter actuals into Tempus as well. So it's not only just planned data, but you can put actuals. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I just want to let you know that's available. Again, we could talk about that in more detail. So just a real quick report. Maybe I don't want to see all these years that I picked. I'm just going to filter, get rid of all these years. Maybe I want to look at 2017 to 2018. And again, that report I picked, I just said, I want to look at project name. Then I want to get down to the generic, right, position role. And then I want to drill into the actual person. I could do it by month, however I want to look at that data. Just a really quick report. You can always export it to Excel, export it to a PDF, put it into a PowerPoint. You can also create graphics, right? So I'm just going to convert that to a chart, clone it, open it up. I don't know how this is going to look. Yeah, okay, it's pretty basic. And then I can drill in. I probably want to change that. So if I go edit this report, I basically just converted that tabular report to a graphical report. And so now what I can do is decide what data I want to put on the report, and also how do I want this graphic to look. So right now I've got it at a pie chart. Maybe I want to look at a horizontal bar, or maybe I want to look at a mountain chart, area chart. Then I'll drill down into a tree map, and then maybe I'll drill down into a pie chart. So I start out here, I drill down to this, and I drill down to that. Very easy to create these graphics. We really did not want this to be where you've got to be a SQL report, an expert in SQL reporting services, or even an expert in Excel. So we wanted this to be much simpler than that. Creating a dashboard is as simple as saying, what kind of a dashboard do you want? And then what data do you want to put on the dashboard? So I want that, and maybe I want a report, I don't know, there. So basically you're just deciding the quadrants you want, and then what are you going to put down there? The URL's created, and that gets passed off to the users or whoever's going to access the data in the reports. So very simple in terms of being able to not only enter your data, but also to scenario plan and model your data, and then also report on your data. So all really leveraging the whole idea of what I call resource portfolio management. So we have the ability to do this scenario planning. You can enter data direct. We can also pull data in from any other PPM tool you have. I have some clients that will pull data in from the PPM tool, but they'll also do resource planning directly into Tempus. Or as I mentioned, if you're just a standalone client, you want to get rid of your spreadsheets, that's really easy to do. We just import them in, and then really you just end up entering data directly in the system. There's a lot of other features if you do want to enter actuals in the system. We also have some budgeting capability, but I think the key is let's focus on the fact that you can do this scenario planning, have this be your kind of enterprise or departmental view of your resources. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our wonderful moderator to see if there's any questions at all.
Thanks, Greg. Unfortunately, the wonderful moderator couldn't make it, so you're stuck with me. Just a reminder for everyone, if you do have some questions, we have about 15 minutes left, so please feel free to type those into to the chat box, and we will get to as many of them as we can before the top of the hour. I see there's a couple of questions already coming in. So let me ask Greg a question to start with, and that'll give everyone else a chance to get their questions in. So Greg, one of the questions that came in, we had a lot of people very interested in the product itself, obviously, and they're asking, does Tempus have an API that will allow our workers or our attendees to integrate with other applications in their organization?
Yeah, great question. So we do have an API. We actually have not only a number of the connectors already built, and again, I'm not seeing all of them here, but if there is another system you need to connect to, our API allows us, again, it's an open API, and we can get you whatever technical information you'd like on that to be able to either put or get data from Tempus into those other systems.
Perfect. So that makes it easy to have two-way data flow. All right, we have a question about here's a challenge that a lot of organizations face. So this person's asking, they're saying that they have a lot of challenges in their organization when it comes to resource management, but that sometimes their executives don't recognize that the problems are that we're trying to get the same people to do the same work, we're over allocating people, et cetera, and they think it's more of a problem with the way projects are managed, and they're wondering how you can help executives sort of understand the benefits of this and understand how it can help solve their problems.
Yeah, great question. So let me just tell you what has worked so far, because we work with so many clients, as you said, right? The executives in many of these organizations, all they see is the output, right? And they don't know the amount of effort that goes into actually getting that data ready to present. What I have found, and again, I'm not selling now, but I'm just going to be honest with you. If we can get your existing data, spreadsheet data, or whatever format it is in, and they can actually see this scenario planning, they either are going to get it or they don't get it. And almost every time, whether I'm showing a CIO, whether I'm showing just a department manager, a VP of a resource management group, and I can go in and say, hey, let me just show you what happens if this project slipped. How is that going to impact your work? Almost invariably, they go, I want that. I need that. Because right now, what's happening is like you said, they're not seeing the value because they're seeing the data in a fairly static. But if they could make these kind of decisions much quicker, how can we fit more work in? I think you'll find it's dramatic improvement. And in fact, a lot of the companies that we work with, and even here's just one example here, right? I have so many case studies. They can get those project requests done faster, way reduced in their over allocations. And if you think about increasing the number of projects you can complete by 25%, I know some organizations have, 5, 10, 20, 100, $200 million budgets. This is real money by able to leverage this resource management capability, because this is your biggest cost, generally, the resources on your projects. So focusing on tasks is good, focusing on deliverables, focusing on milestones and dates, that's all good stuff. But if you're not focusing on the biggest cost of those projects, then that's where a lot of the leakage happens.
Yeah, biggest cost and traditionally the hardest to manage and control.
Yep.
All right, so a few questions around how the data entry and how the people management is structured. So can you speak a little bit about how the tool handles things like flexible work schedules or non-standard work schedules or vacation time off, that sort of thing?
Very easy. So what will happen is that's where you're basically going to be setting up two different things here. One, your admin time, which is those sort of non-project buckets, right? Business as usual, PTO, training, right? Whatever those buckets are, we're going to create. Then we're going to associate these with the resources, which I'll show you. Also, non-standard schedules, that's where we're going to set up the calendars. So depending on how many you have, you can have as many as you want. You're going to determine, like, for example, let's just call this U.S. calendar. And we know for sure that, we're always taking off this whole, most of this week. And so what will happen is when I associate this USA calendar to that particular resource, it's going to know that they're not working this week or that day. That's the same thing that applies to the PTO. So when I go now look at, so you set those buckets up, that's sort of admin things. When you're now associating to a particular resource, you're then going to go, okay, this resource is on the USA calendar or whatever, or shift calendar. And then also, we want to make sure that they're, when they do their training, and it could be they're doing the training all of this week, we know they're not available right here by doing that training. So there's a lot of different ways that we can accomplish exactly what you had said there.
Excellent. A few people are also asking about the different options, the different models for using the software, whether or not it's local or whether or not it's a SaaS model or whether you have different options.
So we actually have multiple options. So it is available as a SaaS product. So it's just runs off enterprise servers. The third largest data center. If you're outside the United States, we have servers and data centers in most of the countries where you would be located. Also, this is available if you want to run it on your servers. So it is a web app, so nothing really gets installed locally on the laptop. Basically, what's required is a application server, which is what Tempus gets installed on if it's going on your servers, and then a database server. So SQL Server is what we run on, and it could be SQL Express, which is the free version of SQL, on up to whatever you're doing. And as I said, scale-wise, we have clients that have 50 resources in the pool, so smaller teams, all the way up to groups that have 18,000 resources in the pool that are using Tempus globally, and then many different sizes in between.
Excellent. So next question is, there's a lot of people very interested in this product, so that's good news. People are asking about how the pricing model, what sort of options you have for that, and how it's structured, and also how they would go about getting some free trials.
Excellent. All right, so two things. For the free trials, just go ahead and send me an email, okay, gbailey@prosymmetry.com. Let me know who you want to have access to your trial. If it's just you, that's okay. We'll just set you up a login. Everybody gets their own instance, so you're not sharing data. And then the only other thing I'll do is I'll ask you if you have data that you want to import in the system. So there's just a couple of questions I'll ask, so I just know which trial slots to put you on. The way we price Tempus is there's two key components that we look at. One is, how many resources do you have in your resource pool? Okay, so if you tell me there's 50, if you tell me there's 2,000, if you tell me there's 150, that's there's some pricing around how many are in the pool. The second thing we look at is how many people are actually going to log in to Tempus. So it could be you have, again, 130 resources or 2,000 resources, but you might only have 5 people logging in, or 20 logging in, or 50 logging in. So those are the two components, the number of resources in the pool and how many are logging in. And again, if you send me an email with how that you want pricing, I can get you the pricing. Right now, I just have my internal price sheet here, but we can send you what that pricing is. It's pretty straightforward.
Excellent, thank you. Question about the scenario planning. Someone's asking about, is there any way to sort of control the assumptions or to prioritize the change? So if you shift the date, can you sort of determine whether or not that impacts resourcing or scope or some combination thereof, and how you weight the different elements?
Yeah, you can. So so there's a lot of detail we can do here. So just know right now, like when we're doing this expanding and contracting, it's a fairly simple calculation that we're doing here, right? It's like a toothpaste tube. I'm spreading things out. Now, I have had some advanced clients where they said, we have a very specific calculation that we want to have happen when we do that. So in that case, during deployment, we can actually modify how this happens and the calculations that occur. Some people want to have, keep the loading, front-end loading and stuff like that they've got. And so we're able to do that. You also have the ability to do some other controlling factors. Let's say in your system, you've got, full-time equivalents at 8 hours a day. You can adjust that in the model and how it calculates. You can also adjust some scoring penalties that we have. You can also say, I want to put in a resource efficiency factor overall in the project. So let's just sort of haircut that to 90%. So I want to just give some fudge factor when I'm doing my models. Or maybe I want to go to a lower level of detail and haircut and say I know my PMs are always going to work 140%. I don't care what it says that they entered in the base capacity. So there are many different ways that we can adjust how the model calculates, how you want to maybe prioritize things, so if I've got, a priority that I want to look at here, I could say, let's move all the priority stuff, or let's make sure that stuff happens. If you want to put constraints, so in other words, I don't want anything going past this date, right? Or maybe I've got a particular project that I just want to lock in, don't move it at all. So there is a lot of those kind of rules that you can set in here. And if you want to get an individual demo or discussion, we can get into even more than that.
Perfect. Thank you. Try and squeeze one or two more in. Someone's asking about permissioning for users. Is there a way to restrict access so that a particular user only sees a subset of the data for their team, and somebody else will see a different set of resources based on team structure and things like that?
Great question. So yes, so we have full security management and role management. So you'll be able to define as many roles as you want to, and then basically determine for that role globally what can they do and what can they see. And then even within projects, what can they do and what can they see. And you can even take it to a further level of detail and set up project security groups. So it's a very robust security model that you can set up within the system. Who can see what can they use, what can they do. And we've got a whole admin manual that we can go through with you if you'd like.
Perfect, thank you. So just one last question before I give the PDU information to everybody, and it sort of comes off the admin manual piece. Someone's asking about training and support and information and that kind of stuff. How does that work?
Yep, so a couple of things. If you want to do a trial, basically we'll get you set up, we'll do web training, we'll get your data in the system if you'd like, and really walk through it that way. We do with support with Tempus. If you go ahead with Tempus, you get training included. There are some clients that would like us to come on site, so we do have that option available. We've got some packages available, services packages, if you want us to come on site for 2 days or 3 days. In general, Tempus is a very low touch point, very low admin to it, so we usually can get you up and running very quickly with really only remote training and remote deployment. Now, with that being said, some clients like us to come on site, and we're okay doing that. And so we can just, give you a 3-day package or 5-day package, or in the case of the one in South Africa, they want us on site for 2 or 3 weeks. So I've got a number of my team members that will be there. So we have full web-based training, WebEx training, video tutorials, and documentation.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. I'd love to get to the rest of the questions. We've got a ton of them, but unfortunately we are near the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of people's time. But we have captured all the questions, so we'll make sure we get those to Greg, and he can follow up directly. So, Greg, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I know from the attendees that they appreciate it as well. I did promise everyone that I would give everyone PDU information, so I'm going to do that. Just a reminder as well, this session has been recorded, and there will be a link sent out about 24 hours from now that will include information on how to access the recording and to download the slide material. So you will get that tomorrow. In terms of the PDU, this webinar is eligible for one self-reported PDU in the technical project management category. So if you go to PMI's website and go under the PDU and the maintaining certification section, you'll be able to report this as a self-reported PDU, and that's in the technical project management category. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Greg, so much for a really insightful, really entertaining presentation, and I know everyone is never going to look at Excel again in the same way. This is a tremendously powerful tool that I know will be able to help a lot of our attendees. So thanks everyone, have a great day, and join us again for the next webinar soon. Thanks, bye.